Hello and welcome to the Yarndale Make Along with Emma. Today I'm going to be making a knitted cloth. Okay, so I've got, what have I got today? I've got some 4mm knitting needles. I've got some of my favourite King Cole Cotton Soft, which is going to make a lovely soft cloth. Here we go, it's lovely and soft. In fact, give it a squish, it's really squishy. And we've got a pattern which is going to be available on the website, as a free download if you want to have a look at that. But it is simple knitting. Okay, so this is perfect for you if you want to learn to knit, or if you just want some company while you're knitting, because let's face it, we've all been doing our own thing, haven't we, this last year or so, and not had many opportunities to knit together. So if you just want to join me in knitting, well, welcome. I'm very glad to have some company because I got a bit fed up on my own. So this simple garter stitch cloth, I'm going to learn how to cast on, just like knitting magic. That's the beginning of any knitted project. I'm going to learn the knit stitch, a simple neat selvage along the edge by doing just a slip stitch. So we'll learn what a slip stitch is and a selvage, and then to finish off we'll learn how to cast off our project. Okay, so to start with, my pattern says to cast on 36 stitches. So there are lots of different ways to actually cast on. I like the long tail cast on or thumb cast on. But have a look on YouTube and look at different methods, because everyone has their favourite. I like this one. I don't know why, just do. It seems to work every time. Now the thing about the long tail cast on is you need a long tail, which you're going to wrap around your thumb. So you need about 1 metre. So you need to pull about 1 metre. So I stretch my arms out really wide, which you can't see here, but I'll stretch my arms out, and the yarn that's in between there is about 1 metre, and that will be enough for my cast on for 36 stitches. So needle in my right hand. This is a right hand, I knit right-handed, so I think there are some good tutorials if you want a left-handed tutorial learning how to knit on YouTube, or you could actually just watch this in a mirror. But I also worked with somebody who was very, very left-handed, did everything with her left hand, couldn't use scissors in her right hand at all, and yet she knitted right-handed because that's how she'd been taught. So this may be for you if you're left-handed still. Okay, but this is a right hand. So I've got my needle in my right hand and I've got my yarn in my left hand. I'm going to make a loop. Okay, to start with, I'm going to do a slip stitch as my first stitch. So to do a slip stitch, I need to loop over my yarn like that, and then I'm going to put my finger and my thumb through the hole and pull my long tail through. So I've got a loop like that. I'll just do that again. Okay, so we loop it over like that. I'm going to put my finger and thumb through and pull it through, and that's my first stitch. So I'm going to pop that on the right hand needle. Okay, and we need to cast on 36. So this is how we do it. So it's the long tail, because I've got a long tail cast on, or the thumb cast on, because I'm going to use my thumb. So you wrap the yarn around your left thumb. It's quite, you can see it's quite tight there, I've got it taut. Okay, then the needle goes into the yarn like that, and with my right hand I pull the tail round the back of the needle, and then that pops over the top. So left hand yarn round the thumb, needle through. It's a bit like a slip stitch, look, you can see I've made a loop. Right hand yarn, wrap it around the back, around the front, pop it over the top. I'm going to do this 36 times, so you can just watch if you want. I'll tell you what, I'll be quiet. You can just watch the stitches go on the needle and see if that, you think you could do that. Okay, that's 30 stitches. So almost there, 32. See, my thumb on my left hand is doing all the work. It's looping it around. Looping it around. Okay, have we got 36? Sorry, I started talking. Stop counting. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36. Okay, right, and now we're going to do our first row. So to do our first row, we need to turn our knitting so that that needle is now in our left hand. Okay, and we're going to knit our stitches onto the other needle onto the right hand needle. Now this is a point where you just need to just take care and make sure you don't knit with your tail end, okay, because you will very soon run out of yarn. So forget about that. That's the beginning yarn, and we're going to knit from the ball of wool. So make sure you've got the wool, or that, well, it's not wool, is it? It's yarn. Make sure you've got the cotton coming from the ball. Okay, so we're going to knit every stitch, okay, in this row, and this actually is the hardest row because sometimes when you cast on, the stitches can be a little bit tight. So to knit, okay, you put your needle in through the stitch. So we've got a loop there. So you go on the left hand side of your stitch from the front to the back. So your right hand needle goes through the stitch and underneath the left hand needle, and we're going to wrap our working yarn around the right hand needle and through, and that's our first knitted stitch. So we go through the stitch, we wrap it round the back and then through to the front, so you're between the two needles. You can sort of feel it ping like that, and that's 2 knitted stitches. So it goes round and back. So you're going in the loop, so that the cast on edge, they're loops, the stitches are loops on the needles. So you're not going between the stitches, you're going into the actual loop all the way along. Can be a bit tight, you just have to wiggle the needle in. And this is the hardest row. So you go in through the stitch, the right hand yarn goes round, in and round. So all of the stitches. Sometimes you need to wriggle the stitches along the needle a bit because they all bunch up. Oh, I like that I can hear birds singing. Spring's definitely on the way. How ready are we for spring this year? So going all the way along. Knit. I'm not a fast knitter, I'm a thrower because I throw my yarn around. One of the things I wanted to learn this year was continental knitting. I was booked on a course, but that didn't happen. So maybe I'll get to do that later on this year. That would be good, wouldn't it? Oh, look, I've split my yarn. Can you see? I'm just going to go back. Make sure I go right through that stitch and not split the yarn. Otherwise, that's how you end up with extra stitches and dropped stitches. Oh, somebody's using a chainsaw outside. And I can hear my cockerel calling. Cockerel's called Ernie. He's very noisy. Right, we're almost at the end of the row, so we've knit first row of our cloth. So if this is your first knitted row ever, well done. Don't give yourself a pat on the back yet though, wait till you get to the end of the row, otherwise you might drop your stitches. Right, that's the last one. Okay, so I've got a lovely row of 36 stitches. There we go, look at that. beginning of my cloth. So row 2 in the pattern, this is where we do a little bit of magic at the beginning of the row so that we get a nice straight selve edge. The selve edge is the name for the edge of a piece of knitted cloth or fabric. So we turn our work, okay, so that the right hand needle becomes the left hand needle, okay. And this row we're going to knit again, because this is just simple knit, knit, knit. But the first stitch, I'm going to slip my first stitch. And that's what will give us a nice, neat, straight edge. So to slip the stitch, I put my needle into that first stitch, front to back, through the stitch. And instead of knitting it, literally I'm just going to slip it onto the right hand needle. I'll show you again. Okay, so I put my needle in as if to knit. And I'm not going to knit, I'm just going to slip it onto there. Okay, so I haven't knitted that stitch, I haven't dropped it, I've just slipped it. Right, and then we're going to knit the other 35 stitches going across, and you'll find that this row is just a little bit easier to do than the one before. So you're well on your way to being a fabulous knitter. The stitches are just a little bit more flexible. Knitted fabric does tend to be flexible and have quite a lot of give in it. Okay, so we knit all the way across, so we'll knit 35 stitches, but we'll still have 36 stitches on our needle, because the first one we didn't lose it, we just slipped it across. And it has the effect of pulling it up tightly up the side of the fabric so you don't get a wibbly wobbly edge. It doesn't matter if you had a wibbly wobbly edge. So I think this is a perfect first project. I learnt to knit. My very patient granny, she must have been very patient. She was very patient. She taught me to knit when I was 7, and I'm sure I started knitting a scarf. I say started. Don't ever remember seeing a finished scarf. I probably got bored because a scarf it's a big long project. Okay, it's simple knitting, so you're practicing your knitting, but you don't get very quick results when you first start knitting. So to start with a scarf is pretty hard. So this, I think, is very achievable and a really good first knitted project. You should very soon have a cloth. It probably takes me, and I'm not a quick knitter by any means, it takes me a couple of hours to knit one of these while I'm watching television. Well, not watching, because I can't watch and look at my knitting, but sort of semi-watch, semi-listen. Stops me falling asleep in the evening if I sit down to watch something. Right, so there we go. So I've done the second row. Okay, so we then turn our work. So all you need to remember is at the beginning of the row, make sure you don't knit the stitch. It doesn't matter if you do. It doesn't matter if you make a little mistake. It's a cloth. It's your very first knitted project if it is, if you're new to knitting. So just go with it. But if you can, remember to slip that stitch and then knit all the way across like that. And we just knit, 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 apart from that first stitch that we're slipping, just to give us a nice neat edge. And you need to carry on like this for 61 rows. No, 60 rows. I think row 61 in the pattern is the cast off. Okay, so we'll just keep going and slowly watch your cloth grow. I never, if I'm knitting I want to put it down, I don't stop in the middle of a row. I keep going to the end of my row. It's very easy to get confused, and because there are only 36 stitches in one of these rows, then I think it's quite achievable to do a row of 36. So you just keep going, and my advice would be don't stop in the middle of a row, otherwise you kind of forget where you're up to, and so just keep going. And we're still collecting dishcloths for Martin House. So if you feel the urge to do lots because they are quite addictive, then all the details of our creative project are on the website, and we would be very, very grateful. And we're hoping to have a grand sale this year. We've got quite a lot of dishcloth, so it'd be great to raise some more money for Martin House. They've struggled, as have lots of charities in the last year. Lots of fundraising cancelled. There, end of another row. Look at that. So there, we turn the work and slip the first stitch, and then just knit, knit, knit. Happy knitting. Okay, so row 60, so it's looking quite good. Right, so this is the last row that I'm knitting. I hope you've enjoyed your knitting. Of course, when you get really practiced, you could do stripy ones. You can mix up different colours, which is quite good fun. But for now, I like the simplicity of this. I think it's fantastic, and I don't know why my very patient granny could have saved her patience a bit, I think, by teaching me to do a cloth rather than a scarf. Anyhow, so we'll listen to those doves cooing. Very glad the chainsawing's finished. So when we get to the end of this row, we're going to cast off, which is very much the end of the cloth. I'm going to be a ta-da moment. So almost at the end. It's quite exciting when you know that you're nearly there. Oh no, there goes the chainsaw again. Or some kind of engine. Don't like hearing chainsaws. It means trees are being chopped down. Hopefully just the odd branch somewhere. Right. There we go. End of the row. Isn't it looking fantastic? Simplicity at its best. But a piece of knitting you should be very proud of. So, and will be just useful for years and years and years to come. I've got some of these that I've knitted that are going strong, good 5-6 years. No disposable J cloths here. Right. So, to cast off, you knit the first 2 stitches in the row. So knit, knit, okay, and then this is where you cast a stiff stitch off. Okay, so the left hand needle goes into the first stitch that you knitted, that's on the right hand needle, and lift it over the second one like that. Use your finger just to push it off. That's 1 stitch cast off. So we've got 1 stitch on our right hand needle. Okay, we're going to knit the next stitch. So I've got 2 stitches on the needle again. Left needle through the first stitch or the furthest stitch from the end of the needle. Lift it over. 2 stitches cast off. Just keep going to the end. So you knit 1 stitch, lift that stitch over. Knit, stitch over, knit, there we go. And that way you've got a nice neat edge to the top of your cloth, or the bottom of your cloth, or the side of your cloth, whatever it will be. all the way along. You have to be quite patient with this and not rush it, because if you rush, you'll end up just popping a stitch off the end of it. It's so frustrating. You've got to try and pick it up. So just go nice and slowly and just enjoy it, the fact that you're almost there. You're almost at the edge of your cloth. Almost finished. You can just decide what you're going to use it for. They're great because you just use them in the kitchen, pop them in the washing machine. Don't know about you, but my washing machine tends to go on quite often. Although probably not as often as it did when all my children were at home, or when they currently come home from university. And then it's on quite a lot. So yeah, plenty of chance to keep nice clean cloths, keep the germs at bay. It's about halfway across. Yes. Just do this next one and I'll show you what it's looking like. Okay, it's got a nice neat edge. Look at that. It's like magic. I do find knitting is like magic to me. I'd love to be a really speedy knitter, but I don't think it matters. I just enjoy it. I enjoy it at my own pace. I've always got a few projects on the go. I mean, currently I think I've got 3 pairs of socks, a jumper that I'm thinking about, so it's technically, I suppose it's not on the go, is it? But it is nearly on the needles. I've got the yarn, I've got the pattern, it's all sat there waiting, ready to go. And then I've got another another jumper that I've been meaning to knit for probably 3 years now. I actually bought the pattern and the yarn at Yarndale, and it has sat in the bag ever since. But maybe this year I'm going to try my very best to finish off some projects, and some of the projects that I've kind of lined up, I suppose, not ones that I've started, but ones that are all waiting to do, that I've got all the raw materials for, so I really should just get on and do it. I've got some Easter socks that I started before Easter last year, so I need to finish those. Might get them done for this Easter. We'll see. I just find it addictive. The more I kind of knit, and then the more I look and I see new ideas, I think, oh, could I do that? There are so many useful videos on YouTube to help you. So if I get stuck and I think it says to do something, I just Google it and scroll down until I either find a video or a photo tutorial that shows me what I need to do, and I just have a go. Right, got to the end. So I've got no more stitches on my left hand needle. So lift last one off like that. Oh, hang on, it's a bit fiddly. Okay, so I've just got one stitch. Now this stitch hasn't been cast off, so you have to be really careful not for it just to pop off the end of the needle. So what I do is I make a really long loop, really long loop, and I thread a ball of yarn through the loop and then pull it like that so it can't come off, and then that's just ready to trim off. And there you have your first, if it is your first, knitted cloth. Okay, and all you need to do now is just sew in your 2 ends. So you've got the beginning and the end, and just sew them in so that you haven't got dangly bits, and your cloth is ready to use. So thank you for joining me. It's been great to have your company, and hope to see you again soon. Bye.